Okay, here's today's project. So I had a customer come in with this 2007 Wrangler, and it looks pretty good on the outside, but as I later found out, it has a host of issues. So let's start with why they came in. They were driving, heard a loud bang, and then lost engine power. It shut off, and they towed it over here. So I thought, these 3.8 V6s being known for spinning bearings and issues like that, that is what the issue was probably going to be. They spun a bearing, the engine lower end was messed up. We have a 2010 Rubicon we got with 70,000 miles on it, like a two-owner vehicle, and it spun the lower bearings. But luckily it wasn't damaged, so we polished the crank, slid new bearings in, and it's been good for 20 or 30,000 miles now. So I know that this customer didn't have a lot of money, but I was hoping, hey, if that's the issue, we can roll in new bearings for you and get you going down the road. No guarantees on how long it'll last, but much cheaper than the $3,000 to $5,000 they want for a used engine in our area, if you can even find one. We got it over here, quickly discovered that wasn't the issue. We got it to fire up, but it was clearly missing on a couple cylinders. So we pulled the plugs and they were wet with gas, said okay. And then I decided to do a compression check. And 5 out of 6 were really good, but the center cylinder on this side, I don't know the number off the top of my head, had 0 compression. We put borescope in, didn't see anything, so we decided to pull the valve cover. When we pulled that off, I noticed something strange. The valve spring was off to the side of the rocker arm, and upon closer inspection, we discovered the valve stem itself was actually snapped off. So this broke a valve. Now, the reason we didn't see any damage in the cylinder is because the broken valve didn't fall out into the cylinder and hit the piston. It is still stuck in almost the closed position. So it snapped off above the umbrella seal or the valve seal up there and is just hanging inside the cylinder. So talked with the customer and they didn't have the money to go into this. I said, I can put a replacement head on it, but there's no guarantee there that there's not piston damage until I take it apart, or cylinder damage, or that another valve, will not break down the road. Why did this one break? We don't know. What caused this? Is it a one-off? Is there an underlying issue that caused it? No idea. Replacement engines, like I said, were several $1,000s, not in the budget. So he sold me the Jeep for $3,000, which I thought, hey, I can, fix this up without having to pay labor, working myself, and maybe I can make a profit. But then I made the number one mistake of not looking it over thoroughly. I saw the nice shiny paint. I'm used to TJs, all the known rust spots. I thought the JKs were much less rust prone. But I get under here and I see rust hole in the frame. Okay, that can be patched. Then I get inside and I notice a bunch of floor mats stacked up. I lift those up. Guess what? No floorboard over here. Again, I can get that and patch that in. But all that is time and money, and a repaired vehicle is worth much less than a clean original vehicle. So, man, I need to figure out a way of making some money back on this. It had a nice hard top. I listed it for $1,200, sold it, and then bought this whole used top for $100. So now I'm down below $2,000 invested in this Jeep to start off with, which is a much better starting point than $3,000 plus. I've ordered the bare minimum to fix this engine off Rock Auto, $300 worth of parts. We're going to see if I can get away with cleaning up the head, getting the broken valve out, seeing if I can put a new valve in its place, lap it, and make sure everything moves free and go from there. If I have to, I'll get a reman head and put on there, but either way, this is going to be a budget repair of this engine. See if we can get this back on the road and on to a next the next owner. So I'm going to start by disassembling everything. The head has to come off this side so I can figure out how extensive the damage is. So I'm going to work on taking the intake off and the head, and we'll go from there. Okay, here we are a couple hours later, and the head and intake are off, and we see what damage we have. And it's just a little imprint into the top of the piston. It looks worse on video than it actually is. We can get away with a little sanding disc, knock the high spot off, kind of feather that a little bit, and I think it'll be fine for our purposes. Ideally, you'd replace the piston, but there's no reason to do that here. That'll last. Looked at the cylinder walls, and we still see cross hatching, no damage there. The lifters are fine. We got to clean that debris up, but no damaged lifters. The push rods are all good, and no damage to the head. So the valve right here, you can see it's got carbon on it, but if it's even bent, it's very slightly. I was able to take a little Dremel and grind where it snapped off here on top, and it just slid right out of the head, just perfect as can be. So we'll be able to lap in a replacement valve, and I think the head will be just fine. Clean up the seat there. Looks like just a lot of carbon buildup. It's been almost 2 weeks, but we're back on the Jeep project. I went on vacation, and while I was gone, the rest of the parts I needed came in. It's now much colder in here, about 20 degrees, but we're going to push ahead. So I got my replacement valve in. It's sitting in here. It moves nice and free. Brand new replacement valve for the broken one. While I was messing with that, I noticed something. And I originally noticed this when we first took the valve cover off, but I didn't think much of it. But the valve that broke and this one right here are discolored on the top. They look almost rusty compared to the rest. The rest, grime, whatever. But this one has this brownish rust color on it, and so did the one that snapped off. And I just noticed now, looking at the rocker shafts here, we can see the same thing on the bottom of the rocker. So you have clean, that's one of them, pretty clean, and then the other one. Now I need to clean this off because you see this imprint. I want to make sure that's not worn into the metal, and that's just buildup of crud around it raised. But that's interesting. So the cylinder that broke and this one over here look the same. So I actually got two valves. I'm going to replace this one as well, just because that's worrying me, and I don't want to put this together and that other one snap right after, especially since I just noticed this. You see, well, let me put this replacement valve in here, and we'll go over this. Okay, you see the height of the valves across here? All those look pretty similar until you get to that one, which is also the other one I was concerned about. Look at how the retainer sits down and locks into the top of the valve, the height. So the top of the stem, same height across, but look at that retainer difference. Okay. We don't really have that here, but that other one we're concerned about is doing that. So something's going on here. I don't know. I researched extensively on the internet, and I couldn't find anybody else who had a failed valve itself. Only people that had valve springs break. So I don't know. Anybody have an idea what's going on here? I'm going to look into that, and then afterwards, there was one bolt that was snapped off before I even got this, and you can see where it's pitted from leaking out of here. But I'm going to see if I can drill and tap that, and I have brand new exhaust hardware to put in, and we're going to clean everything up and start with reassembly. Okay, before permanently putting this valve in, I wanted to make sure it was seating well, so I slid it in there, put some valve grinding compound on, worked it back and forth in the seat, and pulled it back out. So you can see how it's a different shade, you have this ring at the bottom. That's where it's actually seating. So you're looking for consistency, making sure there's no bare spots, pits, irregularities. This looks like it's going to seat just fine. So I wanted to do that because even though this is an OE replacement valve, this engine, this head has over 100,000 miles on it. And you don't know what's happened. Plus, this valve failed. So did anything happen to the seed? Anything hit it? It didn't look like it, but we wanted to make sure. So now I'm confident with this. I'm going to slide my valve back in. I'm going to get a new umbrella seal at the top, or valve seal, and then put my spring retainer and all that back on. Can I see? But it is a good sign that this fits nice and snug and everything lines up and matches like that. So I'm pretty confident in that. I still have to look into this issue right here. I'm curious to see what we're going to find there, but I'm going to get my valve spring compressor out and some tools, and we'll go over that. Okay, the head is cleaned up and ready to go back on. I went ahead and pulled the rest of the valves, cleaned the carbon off, and put new valve seals in. Everything is good to go here. All the surfaces are clean. I took care of the broken off bolt in there. The one issue we do have is the rocker arms. So unfortunately, under all that debris, we have a bunch of wear on those two. So that pretty much confirms to me that those valves were sticking, and that played a part in the valve breaking and causing this failure. So like I said earlier, when I pulled the valves out, at least those, they're really sticky. A lot of grime and buildup on the valve stems. The rest actually looked fine. So there was something to that buildup of grime, that rust color on those two valves, and that corresponds here to the metal wear into that. So that might all tie together. That rust color is actually from the metal coming off there and oxidizing over time. Who knows? Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm not. But for now, yes, I'm going to run this, and I'll tell you why. The rest of this Jeep is still unknown to me. It still needs floor pan put in it on this side. I got to touch up the frame in the back. I don't want to be spending more money on engine parts than I have to make sure that this is going to work correctly. The reason I'm okay with leaving this right now, even though it is an engine component, is it's right at the top. Once I confirm that this works properly and everything's good, I can pull the valve cover off, zip these bolts out, lift this off, and put a whole new one on, or disassemble and replace those two rockers. Push rods all look good, the lifters look good, top of the valves. Those two are replaced, so there's no wear on them. It'll be okay. I wanted to show you guys before I put the head back on. I got it all cleaned up and the new gasket on, but the center piston is the one that took the hit. You can see just a faint outline there. You can't even really feel this. I mean, you can barely, but we feathered it out to the point where I'm happy with it, and it should be okay. So I didn't want to replace this whole piston because, of course, that's more involved, and I still trust this piston over a cheap aftermarket one or even a used piston. We just smoothed it out enough to take off the high areas, which would have heated up and caused pre-ignition detonation, pinging in the engine because they get hot and act like a spark plug, but out of time. So we smoothed that out so it wouldn't do that, and this is going to run just fine with that piston. I'm going to set the head on here, look up the torque spec, and torque the head down, and then we'll get the exhaust reattached and so forth. I'll wipe out that back cylinder one more time. I see some debris the vacuum did not pick up. But yep, that's where we're at. I'm going to start the reassembly process. Okay, Last time I recorded on this, it was December or early January. Now it is a couple days away from being May. We left off with the engine going back together and making some frame patches. So we ended up welding up the frame, descaling it, and painting it. We welded it flush, and I used a CNC machine to cut out these patches to match the original metal, so you can't even tell that repairs have been made. Both of these frame rails have been patched right here. That's new metal. All right, we also welded in a floor pan. I can't really show you that without taking all the carpet out. That's a pain, so I'm not going to do it. But I will show you that this engine that we pieced back together is doing just fine. And we have put, I don't know, between 10 and 15,000 miles. I have to look. I ended up selling this to my dad because he was looking for something. And yeah, he's been driving it daily for the last 4 or 5 months. So this is that same engine that had a broken valve, same original heads, same piston. We never even took the oil pan off, and it's been going strong all of this time. We did have to put new exhaust on it. The old exhaust was rotted out. This is actually from Chicago, but I'll post some pictures of what it looks like underneath after we cleaned everything up. This turned into a really nice vehicle. There's a couple things we want to do, like somebody let the door swing open and put a dent here. We'll fix that and upgrade the wheels and tires, but we have $3,500 in this Jeep, and locally, if you look them up, you're not going to find one any cheaper than $8,500 for a Jeep this new. And yeah, at least I haven't seen one unless it's blown up or something. So I think we came out ahead here, and we have a pretty good vehicle. So yeah, that's going to do it for this one. You don't have to throw in a whole engine when something like that happens. As long as you understand how it works and you know what you can get away with and what you can't, you can make something pretty decent for next to nothing. All right.